Well, I've known George for almost 40 years, and I first met him at the Downtown Presbyterian Church on the 3rd floor of the office of the Housing Council, when a group of us met to solve the city's housing problem and thought that we could solve it by forming limited equity co-ops.
I honestly can't remember the first time I met George or really how long I've known him. George is the kind of person that you just feel like has kind of always been around and that you've always known.
I've known George for probably about 15 years. The first time I met him, he was actually at our organization for a meeting with our past executive director. I came downstairs and saw him sitting at the table, very unassuming. And I asked, I said, well, who is that? And he said, that's our attorney.
I think what permeates George's behavior and acumen is his calming effect and high level of knowledge.
I remember him going head-to-head with our attorney, Stu Cook, as they were trying to put the affiliation agreement together, and he frustrated Stu Cook to no end many times over his commitment to the details of the agreement.
When I first met George, we at Housing Opportunities thought we should be George's best and brightest client. But like a good father, he loved all of his not-for-profits equally.
George was so important to Housing Opportunities and then PathStone Corporation because he was there from the start.
George was a very unusual attorney in that he had a lot of experience with HOP as a founder of the organization back almost 40 years ago. And he also built his practice around a mission-driven work that HOP represented, creating affordable housing for low-income families.
You don't find a lot of people who walk this mission.
The staff and board of Housing Opportunities and PathStone are filled with lots of crazy, hardworking people. Some person had to take these great ideas that the staff had and make them into legally enforceable agreements, and that was George's job, and he did a wonderful job at it.
George went above and beyond the call of duty every day that I worked with him on PathStone projects.
He sends these quick emails late at night, and he actually showed me some data about a program or an initiative that would get a lot of low-income folks to work. And he showed me from 2000, where he had sent a letter to one mayor, and then another letter in 2006. And then the email to me was in 2014. I'm like, wow, who thinks about this over a period of over a decade?
He firmly believed that the residents of the housing should have a say in how it was developed, and reminded us always that that was part of our responsibility. No matter what extra legal work was necessary for these projects, he never would allow me or anyone else to increase his contract amount. He said he had made a commitment and he was going to keep that commitment.
I would describe George in one word as honest.
I would describe George as kind.
I would say the one word would be competent.
Patient.
Kind.
If I was to describe George in one word, it would be persistent.
Smart, humble, and kind.
I would describe George as a person whose values transcend his personal life and his professional life, as a person who really believes in the cause.
George is passionate, he is professional, he is purpose-driven, and I think he has a real sense of mission in the way in which he approaches his practice, the way in which he approaches his life and community, and he brings all of that to the table, both professionally and personally.
My favorite memory of George is really not as much a memory of him, but a memory of a bill that he sent us when I started at PathStone, and we got one of the earlier invoices for a project that we were working on. I opened it up and looked at it and said, oh, this is much too low, this is much too low. So talked to some of the other staff at PathStone, and they said, no, that's right, that's what George charges. And I said, maybe we should ask him to charge more, because this is just really not, it's way too low. So George has always done right by us.
We'd been working on this mobile home park in western Monroe County, and he called me and he said, do you know they have pigs out there? And they want their mobile home co-op rules to allow for pigs.
I was just at another event, and he's a cyclist, and because he's so non-assuming, then he shows up somewhere. We were on the Conkey Cruisers bike trail, and we were doing a neighborhood ride, and then all of a sudden here comes George. Apparently he's an avid cyclist, and he just shows up on, I'm like, yeah, that's our attorney, and he's just taking off down the road on a bike.
My favorite memory of George was a time when the HUD Inspector General Office had notified us that they would like to question Julie and me regarding how we supplied contracts. And George, of course, was our first call on that. And the first thing he said to us was, "Do either of you have anything to hide?" I loved him for that.
My favorite memory of George is a particular instance when he was struggling with technology. He was responding to a simple email, and he must have been responding on his cell phone, because at the end of the email he included a note, and for some reason here's a picture of my foot.
If I could describe something for folks to remember George by, it would be he has served well. A lot of times that you see folks who are leaders in neighborhoods and community, can't really talk about what they've done, and you'll see on their tombstone a beginning and an end. And as you see George, he's going to another part of his career where this is what he's done now, but I'm excited to see, because I know he doesn't retire, what he's actually going to do.
He was always willing to go the extra mile when he was working with you. It didn't make any difference when the deadline was. He'd stay up late at night, never charge you extra, and just a genuine, nice person.
George is a great guy. He's a great guy, wonderful to deal with, never over-assuming, and again, extremely competent in his field.
He never made us feel that we were asking too much of him.
I would like everybody to know how much we're going to miss George and how much he will be missed by the community and by all the different individuals that he's helped through his work over the years.
He is my colleague, my mentor, and my friend. Professionally, he wants and needs to serve underprivileged people.
That even though George is slowing down, I don't think he is in any way giving up his career and focusing on the needs of the community that he cares about and the issues that he cares about, such as affordable housing.
I'm incredibly pleased that PathStone is honoring him.
George, thank you so much for your very low bills, for your good counsel and good advice and steady counsel over all the years, both to me and to all my predecessors at PathStone and before that, Housing Opportunities. And thank you so much for always standing true to the end result, which is serving people and providing them quality housing.
George, thanks for supporting the board of directors when I was on the board of Housing Opportunities, and all of the things that I know you've done with PathStone.
For giving me an opportunity. Thank you for being my mentor. Thank you for being my friend.
George, thank you very much for all you have done to bring this partnership together. It has made a big difference on the lives of nearly 3,000 families that you have helped over your career in creating affordable housing.
Thank you, George, for traveling this immensely exciting challenge that we've all had to improve housing opportunities in the Rochester area. You've made it much brighter and lots more fun for a lot of us.
George, I would thank you for all the times you sat with me, sat with us, and listened to our crazy ideas. Then you would go home and then write an email, "This is what I think you're saying," and you would never tell us no. You would say, "Well, here's how you probably can and should do it." So always being open-minded to us.
Thank you, George, for being a good friend, for being the best colleague, and for working with me for almost 40 years. It has made my life more enjoyable and more complete.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George. Good luck.
Thanks, George.
Thank you, George.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parker, from all of us.
And that's a wrap.